Hi guys, and welcome back to the Dollhouse. I'm Maeve, your Wednesday doll, and this week we are talking about transphobia and transmisogyny within the trans community. Okay guys, so we are back and we are in the full swing of things again. I'm so sorry that we had to take that little break, but we did have, a couple of issues on the channel and we did have someone leave. It is unfortunate that that happened, but it's real life and people don't always get along, and sometimes, it can create friction, and we just decided at the end of the day that it really wasn't worth that friction anymore. So that's the reason why, we had to change things around a little bit. But I am so happy that Cassidy has joined the channel. I think Cassidy is an amazing addition to the Dollhouse, and I really, really like her as a person. I've always watched her on YouTube, and I feel like she'll have a lot to contribute, and it definitely kind of gives a breath of fresh air to the channel. It makes me feel a little bit more renewed, just because things can get a little bit stagnant. And on that note, I just wanted to address one thing that somebody had said, which was basically, and I didn't want to take this too seriously, but I just want to give a little bit of an explanation. Somebody said that on the Dollhouse, we aren't the best with consistency, which I think is obvious. And that maybe, the channel seemed a little bit strained at times. But to be quite honest, guys, this is really something that we do because we like doing it. We are not getting paid to do this. We are not getting anything for it besides the fact that we love contributing to the channel. It was something that we really wanted to do. So at the end of the day, if the channel seems strained, or if it seems like, we may be missing some days or something, it's because real life does happen, and because this is a big commitment. I think unless you've been a part of a collaboration channel, you might not necessarily understand how hard it is to keep up with it, but it is definitely a challenge, and it's a challenge to come up with new topics every week. So try not to be too hard on us. We do try our best, and I hope that we can bring you guys more amazing content, and that we can hopefully be more consistent. I know that I have issues with that in particular, and I hope that I can start uploading earlier. It's just, there's so many things going on in my life right now. I'm really just trying to keep everything together and still post and everything. So I'm sorry if it seemed like maybe we weren't all here, but we definitely are trying our best. Now, onto the topic. It was about transmisogyny and transphobia within the trans community. Now, I know a lot of people don't even know necessarily what transmisogyny is. I think Ig definitely went into it well, and Cassidy talked about it also. But what I wanted to talk about is a little bit of a divergence from those two things, and it is the more cis than this attitude, or I'm too cis for this. And for anybody who isn't, familiar with that phrase in particular, cis is short for cisgender, and cisgender is somebody who identifies with the sex and the gender that they were given at birth. So if you are somebody who is happy being a boy and you were born a boy, or happy being a girl and you were born a girl, that is cisgender. Now, there are some trans people in our community who feel like they get to a point of passability, or maybe living a stealth lifestyle, where they are too cis to deal with the rest of the community, or to deal with our problems, or to even associate with other trans people. Now, you would think that's a little strange, seeing as we have such a small, tight-knit community. But in actuality, there is a lot of friction and a lot of problems and a lot of, resentment that goes on, because at the end of the day, whether you are passable or not, whether you are stealth or not, you will always be trans. And at least for me in particular, and this is just my opinion, I'm not stating this as fact, but in my opinion, it is a little bit insulting when people try to act otherwise. Now, I know a lot of trans women, they want to integrate in society, and they want to be normal, everyday women who are not considered anything of, outside of the norm, which is perfectly fine. You are a woman. If you are transgender and you identify as a woman, you are a woman. You don't need anybody to tell you that, but you are also a transgender woman. And some of people, like I said, they just want to disassociate themselves with that title completely. And I find that problematic, just because you were us at one point. You were earlier in your transition at one point. You were at a different place where things were harder. You didn't have the same rights. You didn't have, the easiest time getting from point A to point B in just everyday life. And to completely act like that didn't happen, I think, like I said, is a little bit insulting. And so these people will go on in their lives and become stealth, which means basically that they are no longer presenting as trans, or they're not telling people that they're trans. They're only, you know, identifying as cis. Or maybe they're not even going to that extent, but they just feel that way. Like they feel like they're very, very cis looking. They feel like they're so passable that they're never really going to get clocked. Which means getting, you know, basically somebody saying that you're trans, or somebody like, you know, acknowledging that you're trans. They kind of have this opinion about other trans people that it might kind of be problematic for them to associate with other trans people, or trans people who act too trans, or trans people who act too, I don't know, flamboyant or loud, that they might be too cis for that. They might be too, I don't know, it's just too... I'm too much of a woman at this point to deal with other transsexuals, which, I mean, it's your prerogative. If you want to act that way, that's your business. But I personally am very offended by that kind of an attitude, just because you will never be cisgender. You will always, a part of you will always be this person who is trans. And, you know, your story and your life is, a big part of it is the fact that you are trans. And I know a lot of girls who, you know, hate the fact that they're trans, but and I think I've said this before on this channel, without you being trans, you wouldn't be you. You would be a completely different person. You would not have endured the same struggles. You would not be, you know, the same person at all. You'd be a completely different person. So, you know, I take pride in the fact that I am transsexual, because it has made me a better person because of how many hard, you know, things that I've had to deal with in my life, and it's definitely made me stronger. I don't know, it just really irritates me that there's this attitude even in our community that there is some sort of a hierarchy, and that really does exist if you didn't know, or maybe if you aren't familiar with the trans community. But if you know other trans women, they do place you in a ranking based on how passable you are, the way you sound, the way you dress, the way you look, the way your body looks. And if you don't have all of these different things, then you are lower than them. You are not as good. And now I'm not saying this is true with all trans women. Of course, there are some trans women who are very mature, do not necessarily abide by these standards, and it is probably more often a younger crowd that associates this type of behavior, you know, with themselves. But it definitely does exist, and there are people that think that they are too cis for other trans women, for the trans lifestyle, for fighting for trans rights. And I feel like that is to blame for a lot of the problems in our community, you know. And just a quick note on something Edie said, and I don't know how big of a part of the gay community Edie was before she actually transitioned, or if she was at all, because I can't actually remember if I've spoken to her about whether or not she identified that way. I know she was androgynous, so I don't know if she identified at all with the gay community, but before I transitioned, I actually was a big part, and still am a big part of the gay community, and I have gay friends, so I know for a fact that the same thing does exist in the gay community, that for gay people, you know, they're always trying, well, and I'm speaking in a general sense of a certain type of gay person. I guess it's not all gay people, but in the gay community, there is a lot of focus around presenting the specific kind of heteronormative behavior so that they can be accepted by other people in society. So if you're too flamboyant and you're in the gay community, then you're seen as lesser than because of that, because that's not heteronormative behavior. That is not the norm. And so it's kind of this focus around being normal in both communities that causes all of this friction. And it's like, why can't you just let people be themselves? Like, most times it's not an exaggeration of who they are. Of course, there are always going to be people who are going to be a little bit, you know, eccentric, and they're maybe exaggerating a little bit to get attention, but at the end of the day, you know, most people are just enjoying themselves. I feel like I'm the type of person who will never be the type of transsexual who passes all the time, or is, you know, gonna be stealth, because that can't be my life. My life revolves around, you know, being who I am and having a good time, and never having to restrict myself or change who I am so I can fit somebody else's mold. And I definitely don't have any room in my life for transphobia, transmisogyny, or I'm too cis for you type of attitude. If that's the type of attitude that you have, it'd be best if you keep your distance from me. But that's pretty much my opinion on this subject. I'm really excited for, you know, the next topics that we have coming up. We did do a brainstorming session, came up with a bunch of new ideas, and I'm hoping the channel is more stable from now on. I'm sorry that, you know, we had issues. But thank you guys so much for sticking with us. I love you guys so, so much, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye.